Hi again, ladies and gents. Just to interrupt for the next 15, 20 minutes or so to introduce today's guest speaker, Fern Whelan. Fern is a professional footballer at Brighton and Hove Albion Football Club in the Women's Super League. She's a former England Lioness. She's won the Women's FA Cup, League Cup, Champions League quarter-finalist, FA Young Player of the Year, European Under-19 Player of the Tournament, as well as a number of other achievements. She's just on the way of phasing out her football career, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And I'll introduce Fern up onto the screen. So it should come through to you now, Fern.
Hello.
Hi, Fern. You okay?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. You okay?
Good. Yeah, good. Thank you. Good. Thank you. Yeah, Fern. So I've spoke a little bit about your career there, and this conversation will take it in a few different directions, talking about mental health and overcoming adversity, all these kind of topics, and try and break down some stigmas around women's football as well, and to raise awareness around that. But to make a point, if anyone has any questions for Fern as we go, there is the Q&A area on the right-hand side. Feel free to pop anything in there as we go. Fern, firstly, football related, what's one or two career highlights for you?
I think you just spoke about a couple of them there, to be honest. I think definitely the FA Cup win in 2010. It was the first time we'd beaten Arsenal as well in a whole host of years of trying to beat them and trying to compete with them at the top level. So to beat them 1-0 and 3-2, sorry, and in extra time as well. So it was really a sweet moment. And then for me, being given Young Player of the Year for the league in 2008, it was as well. So that was kind of a year where I was doing quite well, career high, probably playing for the England youth system at the time. And then obviously can't forget getting my first cap for my country. That's a moment I'll probably never forget. So definitely.
Absolutely. And we'll talk a little, not so much about your career, but talk about life as a professional footballer in the women's game. And it's not like it is in the men's game. And a lot of people may look at the men's game and think, oh, they're all driving these fancy cars, they're earning this much money, etc., etc. But in the women's game, well, even below the Premier League in the men's game, it can be quite different. So what is life like as a women's professional footballer, and how do you balance everything that goes with that?
I think it's definitely getting better for women's professional football. As you say, we're professional now, so that's great in itself. When I started playing, it was obviously doing two jobs, things like that. And, we weren't professional, we were semi-pro. So we were training at night, we were training obviously till 10, 11 o'clock sometimes. And it was quite hard to kind of manage the two. Whereas now, even just being able to train in the day, it sounds so silly, but it really benefits you. And, that recovery aspect as well is so much better. So a lot of the girls are quite lucky in that they're being paid in terms of they don't have to do any other job. Myself, I qualified as a physiotherapist quite a few years back now, but that was more because I knew that, coming to the end of football, the men they're secure in that they've managed to build up all that money and, hopefully they can go on to properties, media, things like that. Whereas it's a little bit more uncertain in the women's game. So, I needed to get a career behind me before doing so.
And we spoke yesterday about pathways out of the game. We've had a number of people from Life After Professional Sport, which is an organisation to help professional athletes out of it. You were saying in the women's game, there is no pathway. And once you stop, that's it, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Unfortunately, that's how it goes. I think I had chats with, my manager in my club that I've been previously at the last couple of years. And, what will it look like if I was to transition into doing physiotherapy, is there roles within the club, things like that, or how do the clubs help? And unfortunately, the simple answer I got was there's transition pathways for the men in their game, but there's nothing set up for women at the moment. So, it's kind of like a bit of a black hole. A lot of players will come to the end of their career, and unless they do something about it without the support of the club, then they might fall behind the wayside a little bit.
Yeah, and what is typically a journey, and it take us into the changing room and the conversations that you're having with other professional footballers in the women's game. What is life like after? Are they looking at other options to diversify and build careers in? What are typically the conversations around that?
Yeah, I think, I went to an event in December, which was basically about transitioning and life after football. And it was really eye-opening because as a footballer, you don't really know what your next step's going to be unless you've obviously got that career pathway. And even then, that's a completely different career. For me, going into physio full time, where it's just me in one room, having been, been around 20, 30 players at a time, it's, even that's quite daunting in itself. So I think a lot of girls will look prior to stopping playing. So I know a player, like a friend of mine, she applied for a job prior to finishing her career at football, just because she knew that, you don't really have that gap where you've got that money background. You might get a month of support from the club, but then after that, you really do need to go and find a salary. So a lot of the girls are trying to open their eyes up to a little bit to know that they're going to have something else when it comes to, it could be a career-ending injury. It might not just be when the time's right, when you're at a certain age. It could be that, your career's cut short and you need to really have something to fall back on.
And what, in your perspective, and we hear from a lot of professional athletes, what have you learnt in your professional football career that would benefit you most for life after sport? What skill set do you think?
Oh, I mean, there's hundreds, but I think for me, the main one for me was I've gone through a lot in terms of injuries, unfortunately. After having kind of the career highs at the start, it's always been a bit of a battle and a bit of toughness. So I think, I've managed to build up some level of resilience along the way, into dealing with a lot of setbacks, to being able to come back and really just trying to change the goalposts as such. I think at the start, it was, for me, when I first got injured, I was out for about 22 months, and it was like, right, my next goal is going to be I'm going to play for England. And that was the big goal. And I never saw anything in between. And that probably killed me at the time, because it was such a high mark, but it was getting further and further away. So, I've learned how to kind of chunk my goals up and just take each day as it comes, really. And maybe still always having that in the back of your mind, that your end goal. But, the whole small goal setting for me was massive, because it made like little tasks not feel too large at the time.
And that's something that a lot of the businesses are going through, having a lot of challenges, a lot of setbacks, that kind of thing. So what was your mechanism to set those small goals? I mean, where was the starting process for that?
To be honest, I think it took me a while, because I was so reluctant to think that I might never achieve that large goal. And it was only when I really started to open up and talk about it to people around me, so players, coaches, counsellors, even just kind of getting some help, really. So I think the first step was just recognising that I was kind of falling away from what it was I wanted to achieve, and I didn't really know how to claw myself back into it. And it was more just opening up and speaking to people around me and talking, and it made a difference, because just one little piece of advice from somebody else can really help, and just getting other people's experiences on it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about it is the best thing you can do. And talking about the women's game, and a lot has been said recently about how the men's game's been so well protected, and they've done everything they can to get the Premier League going again, which started last night, and they stopped the women's season, just ended it like that. What's your personal thoughts on that? What are your views on that?
I mean, as a player, I was gutted. I really was. It was coming to a really important part of the season. We managed to stake our claim in terms of a good ninth place spot compared to last year, and we really wanted to kind of finish the season on a high. And obviously it was cut short like everybody else's jobs were, but I think every week we were getting messages, you're coming back next week, you're coming back in 4 weeks, and all of our guidelines were based around what the male side were doing, and it was never really about what the female side were. We were kind of in the background, so it was like, you're going to be in on the 20th of this date, and the men did return on that day, so we thought, well, we're back in. And then the longer it got on, the more kind of anxiety crept in and around the players. It was kind of like, will I be fit enough to come back? All that kind of stuff. And we just wanted an answer, to be honest. So unfortunately, they couldn't make it safe for us to play. We didn't have the monetary value and the monetary funding behind us. And that's what it came down to in the end. It was, can they provide the £4 million, whatever it was, for testing? And at the time, it was definitely a no. So we had to just take on the chin, really.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And you mentioned how the women's game has evolved into a professional setup over the last few years. Someone's asked, how do you see the women's game evolving over the next 10 or 20 years? Where do you see it going for someone that's in it every day?
I think it's definitely going in the right direction, and I'm gutted, to be honest, that I'm not going to be able to see it. I'll be able to see it, but not playing it to where it's going to get to. And if it stays going the way it is, increasing like participation, we really need to get, the media on board and getting some high-end sponsors, which we have done over the last year. Barclays came on board, and that was a real step forward in the women's game, especially after the World Cup, and would have been going into another Olympics as well. So it's kind of, we need to try and keep that momentum going. And over the next, obviously, 10, 20 years, we just need to get more fans in, increase the fan base. And if it goes in that way, then there's no reason. We know people want to come and watch it. We just need to keep people coming back. And, the more professional the game is, the more hands-on time the players get, training, the better the players will get, and the more it becomes a better spectacle to watch.
Yeah, it's that whole snowball effect, isn't it? And someone's asked the question. It's fairly business related, actually. The current Brighton manager is Hope Powell, who's the former England Lioness manager. As a leader, what's she like? What traits does she have that that makes her such a good leader?
I think what she does really well is that she tries to get the best out of players, and it doesn't matter really how much she does it. She's quite an honest manager. So she's not going to shake around a subject. If she thinks you need to do something better, she will tell you. But I think as a player, you need to know that she's doing the best for you, kind of thing, and not to take it as if it's an insult or a negative kind of comment. And so she'll always give you that feedback. She's definitely stern in the way she manages. But, nobody is shy to that fact. We all know that as players going in, and attention to detail and the technical aspect of her coaching sessions as well are brilliant. And that's one of the reasons I came from Liverpool to play all the way down here in Brighton, was purely to play under her again after playing under her for England. So, that was the attraction again for me coming down here.
So feedback and communication is something that she really implies, and that's what you like as a player, and I'm sure other players like as well.
Yeah, and the quality of the coaching as well. I came down here to be a better player, and she's technically a good coach. She knows exactly what she's talking about, the history behind her and things. So a lot of the players who are coming here are coming to better themselves, and she'll do that in definitely in an honest manner.
And we'll talk a little bit about your transition out the game. You're at the latter part of your career as a player. Someone's also asked, what has football brought to your life? Quite a broad question.
That's a great question, to be honest. And I think a lot of the times I have to answer to myself why I actually played in the first place. And a lot of it wasn't even for myself. It was to make family members proud, all that kind of stuff. So, it's given me that avenue. I've met some amazing people along the way, and I've learned a lot about myself, I think, from football as well, that I don't think I would have learned if I was in any other avenue. I've had to really deal with some tough times in terms of that isolation when you're injured and you're out of being in a team sport for 22 months. You're used to being around people, and I've gone through, different ways in terms of my personality. So, you go from being this big, open, bubbly character to finding different ways of talking to people. And that's what I've learned along the way, is that it's helped me to how I can address certain people. And actually, I've now learned over the last couple of years how to give that back to younger players who might be injured, and kind of not a coaching side, but a personal kind of, that helping side of me has really came out from through playing football. As well as, kind of the usual leadership kind of traits, being as part to work of a team, and definitely managing my time as having to work. I still work physiotherapy wise alongside doing a full-time football role. So it's given me a lot of skills along the way, definitely.
And what is next for you when you have to hang up the boots? What's next for you?
To be honest, I don't want to rush into anything. I think that's been my problem over the last however many years. I've always got that goal. I want to be blah, 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 top physiotherapist in the country, all that kind of stuff. Whereas for me, I'm just going to take my time. I think what's really important is to just find my feet. So I'll be taking on more hours in the clinic that I currently work in, just learning my trade a little bit more, because a lot of my career is being focused around football. So it's just going to be bettering myself as a physiotherapist. Obviously, I've set up kind of a business as well in terms of trying to give back and trying to increase participation, and providing that role model for other young girls coming into the game. to try and increase that diversity in the sport, as well as, females playing football.
And you talk about diversity there, and we have to talk about the Black Lives Matter movement, which is very rightly so gathering lots of momentum, and there were some very powerful gestures last night before the 2 Premier League games with the players taking a knee. From your experience being in the game, are you seeing a shift in that? Is that something that's been very prevalent in the past, or in any discrimination, that kind of thing? What's your experience been in that capacity?
Yeah, I've definitely felt it in the past, and more so kind of family-wise as well, like having known my family's history, and they've been through quite a lot of ordeals in terms of racism and things like that. It's, it's not just football, it goes with you through whole walks of life as well. And I think, it's opened up a lot of conversation, which I think is really important, that it's not just about Black people talking about Black Lives Matter now. It's about everybody kind of, focusing and joining in the movement, and really just taking some time to educate yourself on the history. I think I was having a conversation with friends the other week, and it was like, what were we actually taught in history? And our lessons were based around World War II and things like that. We didn't ever look at slavery or anything like that. And coming from Liverpool, that's quite a big deal. You would think we would have touched on that. So, it's just taking the time now it's in your eye, now you can see it. It's really hard sometimes that you don't want to have the difficult conversations. And I think even for myself, I've not wanted to look at it because it's not a nice thing to explore. Whereas it really is now being open to have those chats and those conversations, just to educate people around you that, it's kind of, Black lives really are important and really do matter just as much as anybody else's.
And lastly, on that point, what more do you think needs to be done in the game, or what more can you see opportunity that more can be done in?
I think it's great, to be honest, that even now, even like last night, people like the players taking the knee before the game, that raises the awareness, obviously on the shirts and things like that. And it's all about raising the awareness and giving people a platform to speak out. Whether it be experiences, whether it be stories that people aren't aware of or aren't known. And especially for me, I think looking at how many, Black players there are in the women's professional league, in the league we had, I think, I counted it and it wasn't any more than 10 across the whole of the league. So, it goes back to increasing that participation at lower levels, and how we get how the training sessions are diverse going forward, and how we can really help players from ethnic minorities have access to these kind of sport and facilities that they might not have if they're not from well-off backgrounds, these kind of things, to then be able to promote more professional Black players in sport, especially in female sport at the moment, definitely.
Great, fantastic. And last question, it's not football related. Claudia's come in with it, and it does go down quite well, actually. You're at a dinner party and you can invite 3 guests, dead or alive. Who would you invite?
Oh, that's a great question. I think, oh God, that's a good one. Nelson Mandela, I think, just again, so I could get some more history behind it and really, get a feel of what was going on at the time. Emily Pankhurst, because she obviously got us the right to women's votes. And I'd have to say a footballer, to be honest. Yeah. I'm obsessed with Cristiano Ronaldo. So
is that to look at, or is that to talk football?
Oh, well, I don't know. I'll let you decide that one. No, but he's great, isn't he? I think he's the only footballer, to be honest, that in this day and age I really probably would be starstruck at. So I'd be amazed to get and sit down with him.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it'll be an interesting dinner party for sure. But
yeah,
great. Thanks very much for your time, Fern. Someone's asked, lastly, how can everyone here that's in on the call help in terms of opening opportunities? We did speak yesterday about the fact that you're looking to do more speaking and that kind of thing. Who are you looking to be connected with?
Yeah, a whole host, just anyone basically who's, I've developed kind of a series of talks that will go out into the business world, into schools, into just looking at what I've basically talked about today in terms of mental health, resilience, reframing goals, and dealing with setbacks. And I think it really does apply at the moment to what's going on with the COVID situation as well. So a lot of that I'll relate to businesses and things as well. So so anyone who's interested in that kind of line of talk and discussion, and how I can kind of help within the workplace and tools that I've learned along the way, to help me cope with those kind of situations. So yeah, that would be great. Obviously my website is myname.co.uk, so take a look and you can see all about that on there.
Fantastic. No, we will do, and we're out of time, Fern, but thanks very much for joining us. Been great. We'll keep up to date with your journey. We'll make sure that everyone has your details and check you out. And we'll keep an eye on. Good luck. Good luck wherever you go.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Fern.